I just wanted to make this video to talk about something that I've been noticing for a while is that, and actually, I've been teaching for about 25 years, teaching art, doing art all my life, but teaching for about 25 years. And one thing I noticed is that a lot of people are used to art and learning art. They're used to it being presented in a way that it's normally presented. So the way that I teach art is way, way different than the way that a lot of schools, institutions teach art. Um, so I'll just start with drawing. So like I've worked at places, I've worked at high schools, I've worked at middle schools, I've worked at elementary schools. I've actually worked at colleges. And what I notice is that teachers have their mandate. They have something that they have a mandate. They have to hit certain numbers by the end of the year. You know, you have all these students, you have all these different techniques and things that you need to teach, right? And they need to have these deliverables that they need to show their administration so they can keep their job. Well, I approach things differently. In academia, in public schools, in colleges, in art studios, a lot of times people have learned these techniques of drawing. Maybe they read Betty Edwards' book, you know, Drawing from the Right Side of the Brain, or The Artist's Way, or maybe they read other books, or maybe they subscribe to certain YouTubers, and those YouTubers subscribe to certain schools of thought of drawing. That's those ways of drawing. I've noticed when I've taught those same lessons, the typical lessons that people use when they teach drawing, they just don't work that well. um, Everybody knows these drawing exercises: draw the ball, draw the egg, right? And then let's practice shadows and all these other things. Like, I mean, we've seen this over and over, and then people don't grow very much. They don't get better that much. I know master's degree students who literally are not that as good at drawing as high school students that I've met within a week. I just taught a class, a summer, I taught a summer bridge class with some students who were going into high school. They're leaving middle school, they're going into high school. And one of them drew my robots. I brought my toys to the classroom and I had them draw these robots. And they did an awesome job with these drawings. Now, you can't get that level of drawing out of, I don't care how old you are, you can't get that level of drawing out of people with the typical drawing lessons that you find in most drawing books and at most art colleges. So let me go back to the lesson plan. So, like, when I say that, in the beginning, I was talking about the fact that, the art colleges have their mandate. And what I mean by that is that they have to teach, they have to teach line drawing, they have to teach uh, shadows, they have to teach proportion, they have to teach perspective, they have to teach all these different things. The issue is that they have to teach this in one school semester oftentimes, right? It's not stretched out over a long period of time. And so they have their lesson plan, and their lesson plan often has a lot of things stretched out over a period of time, but you don't really know how your students learn. You don't know the type of class you're going to get. Are you getting a class full of people who catch on to things really fast? Are you getting a class of people who catch on to things really slow? Are you getting a hodgepodge of both? You know what I mean? And so the problem that I've had with that, I'll tell you a quick story. I did a job interview for these people, and they asked me, they said, "Oh, how do you go about lesson planning? And how do you go about, teaching this, that, and the other?" And I told them straight up, I was like, I rarely lesson plan because what I teach, I know like the back of my head. I've been teaching this stuff for over 25 years. So I know this stuff really well. And pretty much all of my students get the results. The only people who don't get the results are the people who don't follow the instructions. Point blank, period. Hard stop. And so I literally just told them, like, yeah, I rarely do lesson plans. And when I do lesson plans, I rarely follow them. Why? Because when I get in that classroom, it depends on how the students learn. If I start with my lesson plan, and I go in and then I realize that the students learn in a different way, or whatever I had planned is not resonating with them, you have to be able to pivot and go to something that's going to help them understand it a little bit better. And I'm really good at that. I'm really good at freestyling. Kind of like, I used to be a rapper. So back in the day, I would freestyle. And you have to think about what you're going to say that rhymes with the last several things that you said. So your mind is kind of working on the fly, right? That's how I teach. I have core principles that I know that I'm going to teach my students, but how I'm going to teach them, how I'm going to approach administering those principles to them oftentimes fluctuates. Different styles of doing it. So if I'm dealing with young people who are, maybe it's the last class of the day in a high school, right? And that high school may be in a really nice area. Like the school has money, but it's the last class of the day. I'm going to approach that group of students much different than if it's the last class of the day of students in an underprivileged area. Why? Because the last class of the day, oftentimes the students are coming down from a sugar crash because they've had lunch, right? And a lot of times they have sweets at lunch. The crash starts happening, later in the day, and then they're kind of dialed out. So you have to figure out a way to get their interest, right? With a higher caliber, with a higher achieving school or a school in a nice area, those students typically have tendencies to keep themselves dialed in, even though it's the last class of the day. It's like, oh my God, I just want to go home. But then the students who are in the underprivileged community, a lot of times they don't really have those sort of mechanisms of how, or they don't have those habits, the discipline of habits to keep themselves dialed in so that they do good in that last class. This is typical. This is not across the board. So not every single time this is going to be the truth, but a lot of times it is. And so as an instructor, it's our job not just to be adherent to our lesson plan, but it's our job to make sure that those students, no matter if it's the high achieving students or if it's the low achieving students, how do I get them to want to do good? That's the job of the instructor. But a lot of instructors don't know that. A lot of instructors think that, well, I have what I need to teach, and if they don't get it, I just give them a bad grade. That's not the way that I teach. Same thing with adults. I coach adults in my private practice. I coach people who come to me literally only knowing how to draw happy faces. And I help them go in a very short period of time to being able to draw whatever they want in the style that they want and be happy with drawing. And it makes them want to draw a whole lot more. And that's really the only time that you're going to draw a lot more. If you're just randomly doing some exercises because you found them in the book, that may not necessarily make you want to draw. The concept, the idea of wanting to draw is in your head. You're like, oh, I want to draw. But then you do this boring exercise, or you do an exercise that's not working for you. It might work for someone else, but it's not working for you. Well, I'm the instructor that assesses the type of person that I'm dealing with, right? Because the approach is not going to work with everybody. The same approach is not going to work with everybody because different people learn different ways. So what I do, my strength point is I'm able to pivot to a way of administering a principle or a lesson to a person in the way that it's going to work best for them. And the biggest issue I have is that academia doesn't do that. These colleges don't do that. I've seen people go through literally 4 years of college and then go through extra college to get their master's degree. And they're not as good as these students who drew the skeleton. These were middle school students who just started high school. This was when I was teaching at Oakland School for the Arts. And I was teaching alongside my colleagues. They all had master's degrees and they could not draw at this caliber. And guess the person who was over me, who was over the whole program, he was the director of the program. He said, "Wow, how did you get them to do that? We've been trying to get them to do this for years." And to this day, they teach in the way that I taught them to teach because it works. Because what they were trying to do before is they had their lesson plan and they taught the way that most colleges teach, and we have to teach perspective, proportion, da 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 da. And they have their lists and they have their lesson plans and all this professional development meetings and all this stuff. None of that stuff matters if the student doesn't get it. So I'm going on this rant because, again, I was talking to some people recently, and they said, they were like, "Well, how do you go about lesson planning?" These chat GPT interview questions they asked me, right? And I was just like, I just told them straight up, like, yeah, I rarely lesson plan. I'm not saying that I don't. If I'm working for a job and they require that, oh, we need your lesson plans turned in, yeah, I'll do a lesson plan, but it's rare that I'm going to follow it. Why? Because I'm dealing with human beings. I'm not dealing with robots. I don't know the type of students that I'm going to have. So if I have the type of students that this lesson plan works well for, then yeah, I'll follow the lesson plan 100%. But oftentimes that doesn't happen, especially if I'm doing a lesson plan for a class that I haven't met yet. Now, 2 to 3 weeks in, I know the students, I'll do some lesson plans, but even then it still changes because you just never know what happens, right? Sometimes there's a fire drill, throws the lesson off. Sometimes, maybe, I was supposed to get a bunch of supplies and it throws the lesson off because I didn't get the supplies. I literally just taught a program over the summer where I didn't get any supplies until like 2 or 3 days before the program was over. I kid you not. This was real true story. And I was able to still, this is the work that I produced out of that program. Why? Because I'm just good with pivoting like that. And because the core of the way that I teach is finding out who the person that I'm teaching is and how they learn best. That's the most important thing to me. What I plan for lessons and all this, none of that stuff really matters to me. Because if the student is not having fun and they're not retaining the information, then what are we doing here? I decided to make this video just because I thought, I never really did one of these rant videos, and I hadn't did a video in a while, and I'm like, you know what? Why don't I just kind of talk to the subscribers and talk to my audience the way that I would talk to anybody else? And so I'm just trying out this video just to let you know who I am and how I operate as an instructor. And the way that I draw, I actually teach other people to develop their own style of drawing too, because that was what in the 25 years of teaching, these are the types of questions that I've gotten. How do I learn how to draw fast? Number one, everybody could draw. In my mind, my ideology is that everybody could draw. Now, the next question is, how do you want to draw? Most people say, I want to develop my own style. Like, you have your own style. I want to develop my own style. Okay, that's fair enough. Well, I help people develop their own styles of drawing. How long is it going to take for me to be able to look at something and drawing exactly as it is? I always tell people I don't teach photorealism. I don't do photorealism, although I can do photorealism. I don't teach it. If you look at Picasso's work when he was younger, he used to do photorealism. He got real tired of it, and he decided to start doing what he just wanted to do. And that's where I'm at in my drawing career, is I do what I want to do, right? And I teach my students to do what they want to do.
So this is my first attempt at drawing people from a picture.
Mm-hmm.
And no table in front of us and everything, because again, I started getting upset about, okay, the lines are, they're not straight lines. The things are not quite in proportion. These cars are almost cartoony. And I said, so what?
Wow.
So what? This is me seeing what's across the street and putting it down.
Mm-hmm. Wow, this is incredible. Right? So if it is photorealism you want to learn, I'm not going to teach you photorealism, but what I am going to teach you is going to help you learn it faster, much faster than the way that they teach it in colleges. I guarantee it.
So I was looking for a drawing class. I went to Dawood's free demo. I was very impressed. From then till now, it's only been a couple of weeks. It hasn't been a very long time. And that's only like once a week, and that's only for a couple of hours. He's a great teacher. He inspires me. There's no stress in it. Nothing that I have to be perfect at it. I could see the improvement, and I'm following his direction, and I'm getting better. I'm really, really getting better.
This is a guarantee. It's worked over and over and over. I see people come in. I used to teach a class in San Francisco in Golden Gate Park. People would come in at 10 a.m. They would only be able to draw stick figures and happy faces and little hearts. And by 4 p.m., almost everybody in the class, I say almost because only the people that weren't able to do it were the people who didn't follow instructions. It was very rare that that happened. But by 4 p.m., they would be drawing the entire class room in full perspective, proportions and all that. And they would draw everybody in the class. So if there were let's say there were 8 people in the class, they would draw the entire room in perspective and draw all 8 people in the class. Now, did it look photorealistic? No. Did it look like scribble scrabble? No. It looked really good. And it looked like those students worked. Those students that I showed you, I was only with those students for, I think, a week or 2. And this was only an hour and a half. The work that I just showed you earlier in the video, I was with those students for about 2 weeks. And that was only an hour and a half each. And they were able to produce that level of work. It doesn't take long. And the reason why it takes long in colleges is because their true goal is to get a paycheck. And that's not dissing them. Everybody needs a paycheck, but that's their main focus is I need to pay my bills. Just like a lot of doctors, I'm not saying all doctors, but a lot of doctors, their goal is not to make people feel healthier. Their goal is to get their student loans paid, right? Their goal is to keep their job. And somewhere along the line, helping people feel better is a part of that, right? In a lot of art colleges, it's like, I got to keep my job. I got to pay off these student loans. I got to, adhere to all of the mandates that I'm asked. I'm all these quota points and marks and data points that I need to hit by the end of the year. Like, that's the most important thing to them. And this is not dissing them. Everybody has their own lane, but that's the most important thing to them. And then somewhere along the line, seeing people actually grow as artists. Now, there are teachers in some of these colleges that want to see people get better. And, those are the far and few between. But the vast majority, and I know a lot of these instructors, let me tell you, I've met a lot of them. The vast majority of these instructors, they're keeping their job is their most important. That's A1 goal. See, my job, whether I'm teaching at a 9 to 5 or whether I'm coaching someone independently online or in person, my first goal is not to keep my job, because my first goal is that I have fun with what I'm doing. That's number one, because if I have fun, then the person that I'm teaching has fun. Once they have fun, they like what they're doing. Once you like what you're doing, you want to do it more. Once you do it more, you get better faster because you're doing it more, and it just goes in a circle. See what I mean? But I'm going to stop right here. This is my first rant video. Just trying this out. All right, like, subscribe, comment. Let me know what you thought of some of these topics, and I will respond to every last comment. Peace.
I'm going to be taking on a few drawing coaching clients and help them get maximum results in their drawing skills really, really fast. Check out what some of my clients have to say.
I really have enjoyed my time being under Dawood's mentorship. My drawing has improved dramatically, and I highly recommend him and this method of drawing to anyone who wants to improve their drawings. Those of you that maybe have been to art school and you started drawing and shading spheres, or you learned how to draw an apple or whatever, everybody's apple look the same, the spheres all look the same. Contour drawing, it lets your own expression come through. It's a much more relaxed way of drawing. I can't say enough about Dawood, his exercises, his method of teaching. I highly recommend it.
This is the third class I've taken from Daoud. At first, the first class, I was a little startled because I was expecting a project-oriented class. But I came to realize very quickly that this was technique, and the repetition and the drill, like the coach. Put your pads on, get in your 4-point stance, hit the dummy again, do it again. It's the same sort of drill. You're doing it over and over again, and it does make things easier. When you come away from it and you're doing something on your own, you fall back into that pattern that you've gotten drilled into you. So I am perfectly delighted. If his name's on the list to teach, I'm one of the first ones to sign up, and I'm delighted doing it. And I highly recommend him to anyone else who's interested in perfecting their technique, finding their pathway.
The link is in the description for the coaching program. And when you sign up, you also get my online drawing course, High Power Drawing, for absolutely no extra cost. It is an extensive course that will take you through everything that I learned that helped me get to where I'm at in drawing, and it will help you get there even faster, because I took years to get there and I've condensed it down into a process that helps you get results really fast. So if you're ready to jump in now, or if you have any questions, the link is in the description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.